Town of Walpole amendment to order of conditions and land disturbance permits, Conservation Commission, public hearing. In accordance with Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 131, Section 40, the Wetlands Protection Act, Town of Walpole Wetlands Protection Bylaw, and the Town of Walpole Stormwater Management and Erosion Control Bylaw. Notice hereby given the intent of Bristol Brothers Development Corp. To file an amendment to the order of conditions EP 315-1173, land disturbance permit for the construction of an AQV consisting of 100 single-family detached condominium houses, 1 clubhouse, property maintenance facility, and associated infrastructure at Renmar Avenue and West Street. Plans are filed at the Conservation Commission office. Public hearing on the above matter will be held in Walpole Town Hall, 135 School Street, October 9, 2019, beginning 7 p.m. All interested persons request to be present. Time is now 7:02. What we have for the record here. From the planning board, we're in receipt of your requests for comments above reference application. However, there are no planning comments at this time. Thank you for the opportunity to comment. This is the Board of Water and Sewer Commissioners. Continue to stand by the comments that they forwarded to you on August 13, 2019, which are attached. Nothing additional. These comments of August 13th were read into the record at that time. And the Board of Health at its September 17th meeting voted unanimously that they do not have any additional concerns at this time with the application. Revise the stormwater management plan to accommodate the utility easement. This must be the other. The original comments, that's the original comments from the Water Department. Okay. Everything is okay from the Finance Department. Board of Appeals. This project is not before the Board of Appeals, therefore have no comments at this time. There's a review from Beta on the stormwater management, and
This is a read from Beta, and Phil is here tonight, so you can go over that. And this is just the response back from the applicant, and I'm sure they'll go over that.
okay, so representing the applicant?
Hello,
Good evening.
my name's Jeff Torchio. I represent the applicant. With me is Gabe Crocker from Crocker Design Group. We're here before you folks for a land disturbance permit, also seeking to amend the order of conditions that you folks issued back in December of last year. Excuse me. The reason is that through survey it was determined, at least for a refile, that the Eversource utility corridor, where it was laid out, was skewed slightly more in one direction, and we couldn't get that locked down before before planning had a change of some of its personnel, which threw a little bit of a monkey wrench into the timing, given the composition of the board. So we've refiled, and refiling with you folks, what you can see now is reorientation to get correct where exactly that utility corridor is. And what that did was that required some shifting of some of the units from one side of the corridor to the other side of the corridor. And I can expect that Gabe can go through and show you what some of those changes are. Changes, frankly, minor. We got to catch up with some of the smaller changes that occurred throughout the planning board process. So we've got an opportunity to update you folks with regard to that. Additionally, if you go through the comments, excellent points requested, and I think that as we sit here today, that we've responded to all of them. So with that, if I could ask Gabe to run through what some of the changes were to get you back reoriented to what we did on the project and to introduce you so you know what it is that we're doing over off of West and Renmar Avenue.
Good evening, my name is Gabe Crocker with Crocker Design Group. I'll do most of my presenting from this colored plan because I think it gives a good overview. I do have the one from last time too, so any compare and contrast we need to do, I can flip back and forth as needed. You know, for the project is essentially the same as we were here before, but we've made some tweaks both because of the Eversource easement and as we've gone through the planning board process with input from the public and the planning board. As Jeff said, so we're still, I think we were at 100 units when we wrapped up with you folks. We're still at 100 units. A couple of shifted location. For example, there was an existing house that we were trying to keep out here. We weren't able to keep it because it actually doesn't meet we were asking for a waiver from the planning board for the setbacks on it. The planning board came back and said they can't grant the waiver. So the existing house has to go. In its place is a larger detention basin. Before we had kind of kitty-cornered two drainage systems, underground systems, one in front of the house, one in the back of the house. This allowed us to open up and make it more of a formal infiltration basin. We've got really good soils out there. This became important. And as part of the Eversource easement is these two yellow dashed lines that run through here. As we went through the Eversource review process, Eversource disagreed with our surveyor's interpretation of that corridor, and it's generally in the same spot, but before we were a little bit more angled this way, and then it actually came a little bit further. So this road before kind of had a teardrop shape at the back side of it, as you can see there, and the emergency access came up and around and across. So as part of the redesign, this road now has an elongated shape to the end of it. That actually turned out to be a benefit to the fire department because now their emergency access comes straight across rather than having to do a loop-de-loo around the end of the cul-de-sac. Another aspect that came up, element that came up with the fire department, is they wanted the length between this cul-de-sac and this intersection from this loop to be less than 750 feet. We were at about 790 with our prior plan. So the difference really is that this drive comes down and then connects down in here further, as you see here. So when we did that, we always had drainage basins on either side of this, but those were reconfigured for that updated geometry. The fire department had also asked that we increase, they just got that new really large tower truck. It's actually the largest one in the region. So they asked that we update our cul-de-sac diameters so that the tower truck could drive all the way around and stay within the pavement limits. So these cul-de-sacs went from 72 feet diameter to 84 foot in diameter to address that. Planning board had also requested that we incorporate visitor spaces sporadically throughout. From a drainage perspective, as we went through that process, we offered to do it as essentially a porous paver, so that it wasn't just adding more pavement for those visitor spaces. The wetland system is down, the BVW is down over here. There's a small isolated wetland here. There's almost no changes at all in the buffer zone. There were a couple tweaks like this cul-de-sac where it got larger, it was in the buffer zone. But this point, we actually held the end point of it, and the bulb got bigger as it came back. And then as this one grew a little bit in size, these units tweaked. But these basins are essentially all as they originally were. This housing configuration is all the same. So we haven't pushed any closer to the wetlands or really altered those boundaries from what we were originally approved for through the commission. What else? Eversource infiltration, and as part of the, Eversource did ask, we had, in the prior plan, we had a stormwater basin here. Eversource asked that we move that out of their easement, so with the new configuration here, we were able to accommodate that in this basin, as well as, we're actually coming downhill here, so instead of sending some of the water that was before coming down this way, we were able to now come down to the larger basin that we put in there, so we were able to balance the water by handling it that way. Yep, we added, we've now added street names to the plans. The good old engineering, Road A, Road B, got a little too boring. That's it, we did, there were some updates to the overall construction details to address Maggie Walker's comments more. She wanted, more detail on cross sections, roadway profiles, things of that nature, so we've gone through and made all of those updates to her satisfaction. Obviously, she's retired now. I think that was it, and then since then, I'm sure Phil will present his comments, so I don't wanna steal his thunder. But we received Phil's comments. We're generally in agreement with all of them. We tried to quickly respond the other day, so that we had responses to talk about as part of tonight.
Thank you. Okay, let's see what,
I'll come over there.
you want to
So,
fill us in on your report, Phil?
just a reminder, my name is Phil Paradis with Beta Group. We've been asked to review this for the town. So some of the changes that you talked about, we reviewed as part of some changes to the planning board some time ago. But a majority of the stormwater changes were related to the easement changes. And they were able to configure and I think actually improve the infiltration, more open infiltration than subsurface, which I think in the long run, you'll be able to see it curtails easier and not. So, but they generally met the stormwater standards. We asked for a few things that, for instance, a basin 2 in the middle of that oblong, end of the circle there. We just wanted to make sure that they had a foot of freeboard for the 100-year storm. We think there's a few conditions that you may wanna include, or you probably already have included, but just to reiterate them, is that because there is such a strong emphasis of using infiltrative practices throughout the site, we recommend that the town be present on the majority of the excavations, just to make sure that the soils are consistent with the design assumptions. The soils are pretty good out there. A soils, majority of the site, which helps in a number of ways. One is it obviously provides opportunity for recharge, but also during construction, we would expect less problems with sediment transport and issues related to that. But we would, because there is a significant amount of grading, there is going to be a fairly rolling topography related after post-construction as well, that the SWIP plan be provided and be pretty comprehensive relative to protecting the infiltration systems as well. So they provided a response to our comments and have addressed the issues related to the O&M plan and such.
So you're satisfied with all their response to your comments, okay?
So now we just wait for the contractor to make sure, keep moving.
Landis?
I don't have any additional, concerns or comments. I read over Phil's report and, I think the commission should incorporate the suggested conditions that he made.
Okay. Doug, anything?
No questions.
Emilio? Roger?
No, not at this time. I'm very pleased that you worked with the fire department on the new apparatus.
Betsy?
Yeah, I have a question, and I think I may have asked this last time you were here, and you probably answered it, and it didn't register with me. Okay, you have dry basins, wet basins, and infiltration basins, and the difference is what? Because it seems like an infiltration basin that's working is eventually dry, for a little while it's wet. Why do we have three kinds of basins?
It's all based on the separation of groundwater, on what we can call it. So the, under DEP's requirements, they have specific requirements for what an infiltration basin can be. For the infiltration basins, we have to demonstrate from the test pits and the design data that we have a certain separation from the groundwater table in order to be able to take credit for infiltration.
Okay.
And incorporate infiltration into our model, which helps reduce the peak rates of runoff. The vast majority of these are infiltration.
Right.
But there are a couple instances where we couldn't. The main area by the quarry hole, obviously, that wasn't gonna infiltrate. So that, we anticipate would have water in the bottom of it at all times, so that under the definition is a wet basin. And then there's DEP criteria on how the cross-section looks for those. Same for a dry basin. Dry basin will look just like an infiltration basin, but we weren't able to take credit in our model for infiltration because we didn't have the separation of groundwater, so I couldn't add infiltration into the model to reduce our peak rates of runoff in those instances.
Okay, so the wet basins are almost like little ornamental ponds?
They'll look in kind of like a marsh,
Like a marsh, oh, okay.
more than a pond.
Al?
My only question is, it isn't quite clear in your presentation whether this is considered a major change of plan or a minor change of plan, because the resolution is different for each category, so,
So, at least my understanding of the process is, from an administrative level, it's whether we were trying to ask for this as an administrative approval or it needed to be filed as a formal amendment that required a public hearing. We talked with Landis, we felt that the changes were significant enough that it warranted the public hearing, so we went straight to the more comprehensive process.
okay. That answers my question.
And to be safe, we also filed the land disturbance permit along with it, just to make sure everything could get updated at once.
Okay.
Anything else, Al?
No?
Okay.
No?
With these wet basins, what is done to keep the mosquito population to be under control, I guess?
We've been researching it, we think the best solution is bat houses. It turns out that they're one of the best things you can use to address the mosquito population, so, it's actually funny how it came about, but the applicant, literally just got his hands on several dozen formalized bat houses, so we've been doing a lot of research, we think we can, there's a requirements how you have to triangulate them around the basins, you have to be a certain distance apart, but for those wet basins, we had the similar comment from the planning board and the Board of Health, so we're thinking that's the right approach to keep them down.
With the issues with the bat population, what happens if the bats aren't there? As I'm sure you're aware, there's, the bat population has declined considerably.
The studies that we have that were based on Massachusetts studies had to do with specific, the brown bat, the brown bats here, And what it did was, at least what they've got is, they said that constructed in such and such a manner that, they basically have a good success rate. And they've got different parameters on how they're actually put together, where they're sited, heights, what direction they face, et cetera. So I think from a position of, whether you're gonna get an actual effect, I think all we can do is have the highest potential effect. I think that we've heard that there's, with Cedar Swamp, is quite a significant food source there. So our expectation would be that if constructed correctly, put into place, that for these basins, and then of course the immense wetland that's next to them, that we should have survivability of the bats.
Okay. Is there, in your O&M plan, consider maintaining those bat houses over time?
We haven't included that in the O&M that we have. What we're putting together right now, and it's not done yet, I was just looking for the bullet points that we put together, and I can't locate it, but we were looking at it as recently as this week, because the client just purchased maybe 20 of the bat houses already, but we've got all the studies that we're putting together, and what we were going to do is officially submit that over to the planning board, and then also show where they would all be installed, et cetera, with the details to be able to put that together. We haven't finished that, but that will be a separate piece of this filing that we believe that will ultimately be submitted to the planning board and then incorporated as part of their permits.
So what you're saying is you will include that they will be maintained over time as
Yes.
needed?
We have
Okay.
we have a condominium, basically an association, that's gonna control the property. So everything that we're looking at from an O&M standpoint can all be controlled within that structure.
Okay. Anyone in the audience have any questions or comments, please identify yourself for the record. Behind. Nobody.
No.
Okay. So we'll make a motion to close the hearing.
So moved.
Second?
Further discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained. 6-0-0. So we revise the order, we have the conditions as suggested by Beta.
Yep.
Anything else? And as that's, you get the opportunity to review the O&M?
Yes.
Okay, that's in there too.
Yeah.
Okay. Someone then want to make a motion to issue the order as noted?
So moved.
Second?
Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed, abstained. 6-0-0. Good, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Excellent. Chairman, Mr. Vice Chairman, members, thank you very much. Always a pleasure.
Good luck.
Thank you.
That's all that stuff.
Media, you gonna keep those?
I'm gonna keep them though.
Yeah. that's good.
Nope.
Yeah.
This whole top. Yeah, if you don't want it.
They're heavy,
I know it's very heavy, but
Whoa,
watch me handle it.
small for us.
they're so strong. Look at
That's
you.
your,
Watch your head, Al.
Thank you.
This is good to know.
Several trees
Don't
worth
look
of
at last
oof,
season
documents
on
there.
the
I know, right?
Avenue, Richmond owners.
Who is that?
All right, what do we
Don't
got
look
here?
at the glasses. I'm trying to, if we could fit him in at some point, he's basically saying it's not a wetland, so.
Walpole, Notice of Intent Conservation Commission, public hearing. In accordance with Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 131, Section 40 of the Wetlands Protection Act, Town of Walpole Wetlands Protection Bylaw. Notice hereby given the intent of George Macari to construct a three-car garage over the existing driveway at 23 Old Town Road in Walpole. Plans on file at the Conservation Commission office. Public hearing on the above matter will be held in Room 112, Walpole Town Hall, 135 School Street, October 9th, 2019, beginning at 7:15 p.m. All interested persons are requested to be present. Time is now 7:25. We have a letter from Bruce Wilson dated October 9th. Please postpone the hearing and put us on the next agenda in order for us to discuss and address concerns that have come up on the pool, retaining wall, garage, and existing site conditions. So, we got next meeting is October 30th. We have a 7 o'clock, so 7:15. Will work? Did they want, they gonna be able to do this by the next meeting? They didn't say. You talked to them?
I did, and there's a list of things that they need to address, so, you could, we may have to squeeze in something between 7 and 7:15. Town council may have to come to discuss the issue on the DOT easement, and prefer to get them in kinda early so we can get them out kinda early, so I don't,
I'll make it 7:30.
okay, yeah, that would be better, then we could.
Okay, so
squeeze.
7:30, what's
23 Old Town Road.
someone make that a motion to continue this till October 30th at 7:30?
So moved.
Second?
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? 600. What do we got here?
Our next hearing is just the gentleman in front there is representing the Patriots Tavern, which is 100 and 104 Main Street, where the trees were removed. And
Right.
we sent a notice of non-compliance, because in the past, the commission felt it was a small wetlands area. So they provided information tonight where they did some soil borings, test pits, and came up with information that it does not define as a wetlands.
You agree?
Well, you might
Yeah, hi.
come up and just.
I'm Joe Dorset from Environmental Energy, and this is the report we had prepared for the commission. Take a look at it.
Thank you.
It addresses all the resource areas that could be potentially on the property, as well as a soil evaluation. And can't really do a good vegetation delineation because they cut the trees down. My client is cease and desist any activity on there pending this hearing, and will not do anything additional until they get permits. I think their intention was perhaps to look at adding some additional parking, and they certainly weren't gonna build a parking lot without a permit, but they got a little anxious and got ahead of themselves and cut the vegetation down. If you were to sort of grind through the letter, it's pretty clear in here that there's not mapped wetlands, there's no priority habitat, no vernal pools, no streams, no land subject to flooding or ACECs, and in conjunction with the test plots that were done for soil at 12 and 24 inches, it's just not a wetland. There's pictures in here of the soil plugs, there's FEMA maps in here, locations of the test plots, and all the DEP delineation forms that you'd probably want to see. I think it's a pretty thorough report, and just sort of looking at it from sort of, not a layperson's standpoint, from just sort of from 10,000 feet, it just doesn't appear to be connected to anything either. But it is a low area, there's no question about it.
Right, it would have just been jurisdictional under our bylaw, which includes those wetlands, but, so it looks like your soil test came up with non-hydric soil.
That's correct. Yes, ma'am.
I mean, honestly, when I went out there, it didn't look particularly like a wetlands, but it had been, the commission had enforced it before, with I guess, some understanding that it held water at some points, but it doesn't hold water long enough for its soils to develop. It wouldn't be a wetlands even under our bylaw.
Okay. What's the area
Yeah.
of the site? How many square feet?
If I'm not mistaken, this is less than 10,000 square feet, the total area,
Okay.
for sure, that they cut the trees down.
Okay. Is there a requirement before clearing that some permit is required from some department in town?
Not with that amount of clearing. It's relatively small amount of clearing.
But you always get in trouble when you do it, you know, for sure. The building inspector doesn't like it, the Concom sometimes doesn't like it, so yeah.
So there's no issue with the building inspector then?
Not that I know of. I don't think it's a large enough area.
Okay. Okay. So, what do we have to do?
Retract the notice of
Mhm.
non-compliance, but we
Okay.
can send you a letter. I think Al, it was you that was more, thought that it was a wetlands in the past because
Well,
it's been.
There was a connection
Water.
between that and the stream that's downslope from there, behind
Uh-huh.
the next house and the next house, and then it connects to a stream, so that's what it was about.
Okay.
So
Is the stream on here?
I would move that we vacate the,
Yeah, I mean, if it's not showing any indicators
Yeah.
of wetlands, soil,
present time.
vegetation, or, and I have kind of gone out there since it happened periodically after rain events to see if there was any accumulation of water, and I really didn't ever notice any.
wait until Sunday.
We're gonna see what happens on Sunday.
Yeah,
I mean, it
yeah.
just being a depression, it's obviously gonna accumulate some,
See the
but
stream he's talking
it's
about?
not
There's the
staying
sign.
there long enough for hydric soils.
Do I see it?
All right, we have a motion offered. Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay. Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, 600. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank
Well,
you
we
very much.
appreciate you coming in and
Okay.
providing us with this information.
Our pleasure.
Yeah.
See this, and it connects to this, and
Mhm.
it goes down.
Is it something that we can see on this?
Okay.
No, but, let's see,
Yeah, I don't see it.
you go to, let's see, there's a church here.
Mm.
Drive by there all the time. and
You go
never
behind there,
dawned on
you see the dark,
me. Right, me too, yeah.
and it keeps going. And eventually it connects to the water from this.
Town of Walpole Amendment to Order Conditions, Conservation Commission Public Hearing in accordance with Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 131, Section 40 of the Wetlands Protection Act. Town of Walpole Wetlands Protection Bylaw. Notice hereby giving the intent of Egler Realty Trust to amend the approved order of conditions, DP number 315-1156. To replace the box culvert with a round corrugated metal culvert type at Lot 2, Rustic Trail in Walpole. As I filed with the Conservation Commission office, public hearing on the above matter will be held in Walpole Town Hall, 135 School Street, October 9th, 2019, beginning 7:30 PM. All interested persons request to be present time around 7:35. Let's see what we have here. The Health Department, Board of Health, at its October 1 meeting, voted unanimously that they are in opposition to new construction within the wetlands and add their concerns regarding mosquito-borne illnesses, including Triple E and West Nile, which are more prevalent in wetland areas. Board does not have any objection to the proposed culvert for the amended order of conditions. From the office, everything's okay. From the engineering department, Engineering Department received a letter from J.M. Grinder Associates dated September 12th. A two-sheet plan titled Notice of Intended Plan for Lot 2 Lost West Trail. Revised 9/12/19, prepared for the Hagler Family Trust by J.M. Griner Associates. Note the following. Proposed culvert design change appears to meet the same criteria as the one originally approved, including the stream crossing standards as noted in Mr. Griner's letter, and as shown on sheet 2 of the plan, we have no objection to the change. Okay, representing the applicant?
Yes, John Grenier.
Grenier.
James
Excuse me.
Grenier Associates.
Mispronounce your name, sorry.
Oh, that's okay. You did better than others have. Yeah, so we, just to bring everybody up to speed, we received an order of conditions from your board last year in late spring. And the order of conditions included there's an intermittent stream that runs across the frontage, and part of the order was to install, we expect a 5x8 precast concrete box culvert for that crossing. And the size of that was to meet our openness ratio and meet the width ratio and the openness ratio, so to anything to get up and down that corridor. Since that time, the owner has had various people interested in purchasing the lot. He has actually someone who's looking to buy it now, and when they were pricing out the site work and the materials, they priced out the precast box culvert, and they were giving prices of like $55,000 for it, which I couldn't believe that the numbers were that high. Outrageous. So we said, okay, what are some other alternatives we can look at that would obviously allow for the crossing, meet our width ratio, our openness ratio. So, and we did some shopping around. We found a supplier who can give us a 6-foot diameter galvanized aluminum like ribbed pipe. That's something that a lot of times you go skiing, you see these big culvert pipes up, running from mountains. It's not something that we use a lot around here. There you go. So it is used in many applications, typically not for smaller residential projects, but cost effective in this application, it's much better. I think it's like not even a third of the price. I'm not sure what it came up with. It was less than like 15,000.
Yeah.
You know, so it was like less than a third of the price. It still meets all the criteria. It has the weight bearing capacity. Actually, typically we'll go for for truck traffic, an H20 loading. This has double that, so it's very sturdy. Has the weight bearing capacity because obviously you're going to have concrete trucks going in there. You can have other large vehicles going in and out of there over time. So it meets all of the specs. In fact, because of it's round and it's not an 8-foot wide box culvert, the area of disturbance within the resource area is less. So we have less square footage of disturbance within the resource area, but we did keep the same, we kept the same replication area. So now we have an even a greater ratio, greater than 1.5 to 1. We were giving 1.5 to 1 replication. It's a few hundred square feet less than what was originally proposed. So now we're just less than 2 to 1, but greater than 1.5 to 1. So we're giving even percentage-wise even more replication area than under the original proposal. The other minor change with the party that's interested in purchasing the property, they had us flip the garage location so it's more of a straight shot into the garage. And all of that is really just skirting around the 100-foot buffer zone. So that's kind of well outside, you know, the resource areas and obviously well outside the 25-foot no alteration. So that's skirting around the 100-foot buffer zone, but it just was more practical for him to, he thought to have the driveway come straight, front load, straight up into the garage area from the crossing and the driveway. That's really the long and short of it. I don't know if you have any questions or comments, but I'd like to address them if you could.
And Landis?
So this is a request for amended order of conditions, and I provided everyone with a, just to refresh our memories, the policy from DEP. 'Cause the way DEP writes their policy is that an amendment should only be acknowledged with change in the original order. I know the commission has consistently over the years made amendments to similar stuff that you're proposing tonight. It's a little different when the work is within a resource area than if it's, changed to a house or something just in the buffer zone. So the commission should just consider that, and this was brought up by town council. This is why I'm bringing it up again,
Right.
because it was brought up by town council to,
I did receive your email on that, and so I looked up what the policy is, and in part of that, and I can read it, and this was just
everyone was given a copy of that.
Okay, in that, it says, in issuing an amendment, it says the issuing authority first makes a determine whether the request for change is great enough to warrant the filing of a new notice of intent, or whether it is of relative minor nature and can be considered as an amendment to the original final order. It said, in making this determination, the issuing authority should consider such factors as whether the purpose of the project is changed, obviously this hasn't, whether the scope of the project has increased, this is decreased, and whether the project meets relevant performance standards such as the openness ratio and other requirements, and whether the potential for adverse impacts to the protected statutory interests will be increased. And then it says relatively minor changes which result in the same or decreased impact on the interests of the Wetlands Protection Act are appropriate for amendments. So I would contend that, obviously the scope of the project hasn't changed. There are no additional impacts. The scope of the work is actually a little smaller than it was originally under the original order. And that there would be no increase in any detrimental impacts to the resource areas, because we are still meeting all the same standards. So I would contend that it would qualify for an amendment, based on those criteria. And this was, again, off of the DEP website for, what's allowable under.
Right, that's what they had, they've all have a copy, just to refresh their memory of that.
Okay, so I would contend that the scope of the project hasn't changed, there's no additional impacts to any resource areas, and the scope of the project is actually a little bit smaller than what was originally approved.
And so also with the corrugated, culvert being sunk into the ground, I couldn't find on your plan the specs for what you're covering up, 2.5 feet with what? Or did I miss it?
We're basically gonna mirror the existing channel bottom. So we're gonna bury the pipe 2.5 feet into the ground and then try to replicate the channel similar to
So you're
what
gonna
the-
go in and you're gonna excavate out the area, put in the pipe, and then what you excavated out, put back into the
Correct.
pipe?
Correct.
Okay, I just didn't read
Okay.
that anywhere, maybe I missed that, so.
Well, yeah, I have 3/4 washed stone, whatever, bedding for the pipe.
On the outside.
And on the outside, and then we're filling that, and said channel that material to model existing. So we're gonna fill that in, and that's the model of the existing material that's being used.
I sort of understood the top part being the channel, but
Right.
just wanted to make sure that what's below the channel should be, I guess, what you scoop out to put the pipe in.
Right.
And then, so I actually would recommend to the commission, to decrease the replication area. It's great to replicate wetlands, but this is a really nice area. This is not a degraded area. This is an area with nice trees. This is a nice buffer zone. So to take a nice wooded area and to cut all the trees down and make a wetlands, 1.5 or over 1 to 1.5 ratio, to me, doesn't seem to be the right choice. I would keep it to a 1 to 1, and so you would push it back so that you would have also some buffer zone, because the way the wetlands is set up, it's, you don't have any more of that 25-foot no alteration area, or you have just a slight bit because of the grading from the detention basin.
Right.
So I would make it smaller and have a more of a buffer zone between the basin and the wetlands.
Okay, so keep the replication area closer to the driveway? Is that what you suggest?
Well, I think you can have it still, like, right now you're cutting this whole area which has the dots in it.
Mm-hmm.
So I would make it less,
Make it
so
just
that
more
you
parallel.
actually have a 25-foot, a no alteration area there.
Should you make some drawings on, should you make some drawings on the?
Because I want it obviously hydraulically connected to the
Yeah,
wetland.
right, so I would just like cut it in half. What
Okay,
it's
that's,
now
okay,
12
I'm with you.
1,228, but I wouldn't disturb that half that you're not.
So make it, you know, we're altering about 667, so call it 700 feet, just for rough numbers.
Yeah, and then just,
And just cut it right in half.
right,
Okay.
and don't do anything to that area, leave that
Gotcha.
treed and start your grading for the detention basin up there where you have it, but, so
Okay.
that there's some treed, shrubby,
Between the two.
right, between the two, because
Okay.
there is a
That makes
relationship
sense.
between the two, and it's, you know, it's
In a lot of
kind of a
cases.
nice area.
No, and I agree with you.
Yeah.
Some commissions, they wanna get as much replication area as possible, they'll take, you know, as many square feet as they can, but in this case, I totally
Yeah,
agree with
in
you.
certain areas, I think that's a good idea. This is also very, there's a lot of boulders and rocks and, you know, who knows what kind of hydrology's underneath those
Right.
rocks, really, that you not developing soil, so.
Yeah.
That's my
Okay.
suggestion.
That seems fair to me.
I think that's all that I had, you know, I obviously, I think just, disturbing less of the, stream area is good, so to have a more scaled down culvert is a benefit. And then also just, I don't think you showed on your plan restoring the area, your work area between the culvert and the limit of work. So on either side of the driveway, the culvert, there's
Right.
sort of a work area, but
And
That's-
that'll get regraded and stabilized, and it'll just.
so the
let-
stream bed would go back to
Correct.
reconfigure it the way it was.
And then any of the side slopes on either side, that will get stabilized, and then it'll just,
With
it'll go-
wetlands mix, or,
yeah, with the planting mix and let go natural.
so those specs weren't on your plan either.
You want them on the plan?
Unless they are, unless I couldn't find it.
I have this replication, I have notes for guidelines for replicating in the areas.
So does it state to replicate the temporary disturbance? I mean, we can condition that the same specs for application is met for the temporary as well, temporary disturbance.
Mhm.
Okay. Anything else?
No, that's it.
Okay. Doug, anything?
Yeah, just a kind of a sanity check question. With your 6-foot diameter galvanized pipe, has that pushed the pumped sewer discharge line up higher in elevation to clear that pipe, or is it? Basically, I'm wondering if you're pushing it into an area where you might have a freeze blockage in the winter of the sewer discharge.
No, there is, for the force main itself?
Yeah, yes, yeah.
So because we're dipping it down? Well, that's not running, that's running parallel outside of the pipe, it's not going underneath it. And we're sleeving those, and we're gonna be burying those so they're deep enough, just like you would for a water line, so you're not gonna have any issues with frost or freezing.
Yeah.
And so those aren't, and we're sleeving those, so if there's ever an issue, you can pull your line out and run, not that you ever would, but having the sleeves decreases the chances of having to go back in and excavate down the line. But those will be buried, just like a water line, you'll have 5 feet of cover over those for frost protection.
It sounds good, but if there was an issue and the sewer discharge line started leaking, the sleeve is on the outside of that, how would the owner spot it? Is it visible to the owner if something starts leaking?
Well, it's a solid, it's like it's a water pipe,
Yeah.
pretty much. It's a solid pipe.
Yeah.
It doesn't have joints.
Okay.
And there is, I don't know that you would have an opportunity to have a leak in that. And again, it's buried 5 feet down for frost protection.
That's a pretty standard way of doing it for
Yeah, it
this
is.
kind of,
It is.
okay.
I've done a number of them. And there's not joints, it's a continuous long, like 2-inch water line. So it's not jointed where
Yep.
something could blow out
Yep.
or a gasket could have an issue.
Fail, yeah, okay, thanks.
And it's just,
Neil?
excuse me, you're satisfied with the diameter, the size of the pipe is adequate to, in comparison to the, what they had originally
Yeah, I
spec'd
think
out?
on the plan, or actually in the letter, they note that they met the stream crossing standards for openness and
Okay. That's fine, that's all I.
Roger?
Have you run the size of the pipe through the water department?
The size of,
Your water line,
for the water, like the
The sewer?
for your water
domestic
line,
water
from
line?
the service, water
Typically-
service for the house.
typically, I mean, that would get spec'd out by the water department, but typically it's a 1-inch. For a run of this length, you'd have a 1-inch water line.
Okay.
Anything else?
Yep.
That's, Al?
I don't see that this is a problem as long as this corrugated metal pipe is installed correctly. Since it weighs less than the concrete structure, it's easier to install, doesn't need as big a machine. So as long as it's installed with the bottom part of it filled with the stream bed material, I think this is probably better than the concrete structure initially proposed. So,
And the price is much better.
so I don't have a problem with it.
Anybody in the audience have any questions or comments? Please identify yourself for the record.
Have you commented at all on the expectations for climbing for this, work again?
Can you
Excuse me,
just identify yourself?
You're,
Sure, I'm Bob Hilty, and I'm an abutter to the adjacent property that's under development.
okay, and you are? And your name, please? Thank you. So I guess you're
Yeah, I
gonna
think Greg
start
was
soon?
saying, If everything goes smoothly, he'd be looking to start clearing within a few weeks. And, then get all his erosion control in place, have it inspected, and commence all of his, the process would be one of the first things done, because obviously you have to get in there. So he'd be working this fall, hopefully.
Okay. Anyone else? Anything else? Okay, we'll make a motion to close the hearing.
So moved.
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, 600. So a revision to the order as noted.
So does the
Whether he has
commission
an
agree
amendment?
with reducing the replication area?
I do.
Yeah, I think that makes sense.
Sounds good.
So reducing the.
So Lance would spec that as one-to-one?
Yeah, we should have stuff on.
Okay.
And then the rest that was proposed to be the application area should be no alteration area.
Correct. Yeah, so nobody's clearing that, we're gonna leave those,
Right.
the purpose obviously is to save the
Exactly,
trees.
exactly,
Right.
yes.
Okay.
Okay.
And, maybe if you can just get a smaller sheet, a 8.5 by 11
I can do that.
sheet with a revised replication
Right, so then
area.
when we get that staked out,
Yeah.
it's staked out properly, we can do that.
Okay. You'll note that on the order that one-to-one is acceptable to the commission. Anything else we need to add on this?
Just make a note to use the wetlands restoration specs for the temporary wetlands disturbance afterwards, and yep, that's it.
Okay, someone make that a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, 600. Thank you.
Thank you, appreciate your time.
I'm not in line.
This is the planting plan. This is the plan for the plants. So, we'll look at that in a minute.
Walpole Conservation Commission, notice of intent, public hearing. According to Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 131, Section 40 of the Wetlands Protection Act, notice is hereby given the intent of Wall Street Development for construction of a 36-unit condominium development, including 7 buildings, access drives, utilities, and related site improvements located at Burns Avenue, map 20 lots 119, 136, 137. Plans are filed at Conservation Commission office. Public hearing in the above matter will be held in Walpole Town Hall 135 School Street, April 10th, 2019, beginning 7:15 PM. All interested persons requested to be present. Hearing's been opened and continued. And what do we have? Anything new? Nothing new. Okay, representing the applicant?
Good evening. My name's Lou Petrosi. I'm here on behalf of Wall Street Development Corp. I have with me our project engineer, Rob Truax from GLM Engineering, and our environmental consultant from Ecotech, Mr. Paul McManus. Last time we were here, we discussed some supplemental information that was provided as, I guess it would call it mitigation for the riverfront. You have those plans, they were dropped off the following day to the commission. So we haven't received any feedback or comments regarding those plans that I know of. So we're here basically to hear what the commission thinks, and if there's any additional information that is necessary.
Okay, so you have nothing additional to present to us this evening?
I don't think so. Do
Okay.
we? No?
Okay.
We presented that plan at the last meeting, if you recall, and we submitted it the next day.
Yeah, there was,
So that was the, if you want, we can go back through it and just do a refresher. I don't know if everyone was here when we went over it.
um,
Wanna go over the changes real quick?
why don't you do that? We should be looking at sheets,
I would look at the start sheet B.
okay?
Supplemental page.
Impact. What we did on this new plan was we changed the building and the configuration on the left-hand side of the road driving into the site. We had 3 buildings on a previous plan that pushed out into the non-degraded riverfront area. We reduced it to 2 buildings with, I think it's 1 less unit, yeah, 1 less unit on this side. And we were able to take it completely out of the degraded area for the development of these 2 buildings, the non-degraded area, I'm sorry. And then we added that unit to the last building on the right, so we were disturbing more of what we're considering the degraded area of the riverfront. The only area now that's being disturbed that's non-degraded is this hatched area here for the cul-de-sac, for the construction of the roadway and the buildings. And so those numbers are reflected on that plan, as you can see on the left-hand side. Also, what we gave you was supplemental D, was the restoration and expansion details. We have a couple things going on, well, several things going on. We have a restoration of the 25-foot wetland buffer down along the bottom of the site towards the wetland boundary near the detention pond. And then we have the degraded area being restored and planted with a whole specification on how that's done. We also added some buffering to the neighbors on Brook Street. There's a house right here. We added some white pines and Norway spruce, that's some buffering. And then we showed the alteration for the utilities and how that will get restored after completion, when it gets restored back to its somewhat of natural state. We have a planting plan here, specifications, we show the plant layout, different species being planted throughout that area. So that's just a summary. That's where we were at the last meeting.
Okay.
Can I ask you?
Yeah, go ahead.
Can you, or maybe Paul McManus, or somebody, explain a little bit more, based on the Oxbow report, the area that was,
Yeah, Paul.
18, 100 square feet of area, which, the invasive species are gonna be removed, or can you explain that a little more, exactly what,
Excuse
and
me,
what
yeah.
area this is?
Sure. Basically, Oxbow divides the site into 3 zones. The first, sorry, the first zone, let me go back to this sheet. Shows the whole- The first zone generally is the footprint of the development, which they characterize, and I agree, as having the most invasives up here. And they basically say that, you know, there's so much over here, and essentially their recommendation here is, you know, this topsoil, and it's gonna have a lot of seeds, a lot of plant material and everything. Don't go and use that material and spread it out somewhere else on the site, or you're gonna just spread those materials around. The second zone that they described is really down here, and they had asked, you know, they had some general recommendations for dealing with this area down here.
So
and-
what would they refer that area down there as, 'cause
I forget the terminology.
I was looking, that's why it was confusing from unless there was a revision, I don't know, I have June 10th for their report to match up. So there's 1,834 square feet of polygon, which they call the restoration plan for degraded cover type.
Yeah, so the plan has changed, as Rob just described, so the numbers have changed, but basically, they're referring to it as the degraded area restoration, which is this area down here.
Okay.
And then the third area that they describe, they do it based on a compass heading, I wanna say the northwest, is that the designation? I don't have it in front of me, but,
I think so. The northwest portion of the 100-foot buffer zone and inner riparian area, yeah.
which is essentially
That
this big remaining area over there. So it's really the development area, what they're calling the degraded restoration area, and then the northwest area is all of this up here. Where there's nothing intensive happening, but there's still, you know, some invasives in here, and they talk about, treating that, which is a combination of hand pulling, you know, with a weed wrench and that sort of thing, foliar, you know, hand
It
application.
says sorry to interrupt, but it says in the northwest portion of the 100-foot buffer zone inner riparian, which is currently leased, we recommend removal of woody invasive plants. So they're gonna remove all the woody invasive plants.
Yeah, which they're not extremely prevalent up here, they're kind of present throughout, but not nearly to the degree that they are up here.
But we don't know. And are there gonna be trees cut down in that area too?
I don't think we were talking about any trees. They're mostly vines and,
Yeah, there's bittersweet, there's some Tatarian honeysuckle, and then there's some garlic mustard, which they talk about
Right,
separately.
they do talk about garlic mustard, and then they talk about the woody invasive plants. I was just trying to get a handle of how much of the area
No, it
was
doesn't.
gonna be,
If you
was
go-
gonna be
If you
cut.
look in the first part, they describe these areas, and this so-called northwest area, they call out, and as I said, I agree, has invasives, but it's much less dense than this area up here, which obviously is, you know, on the site is the most beat up and therefore the most susceptible to the invasives. So think about it that way, the development area, they're using the term degraded, I know we've talked about that, but the degraded area that they describe, and then the northwest, so it's kind of 3 zones.
Okay, it's just, it's not clear.
Yeah, no, I,
Right, so and it says denoted undesirable invasive plants, it's trees, and there's lots of trees that are called out here, so, but that's not trees in this northwest portion of the 100-foot buffer zone. There's no trees that are gonna be taken down.
I don't think so. I don't think so.
I don't think there's any, of what they're talking about is, it's the only tree species that they're talking about is Norway maple. I don't think those are up there.
Okay, so vegetation within a 100-foot buffer to the stream, sugar maple, white ash, shag, bark, hickory.
Those are all natives.
Those are all gonna stay. Honeysuckle. Okay,
We can have them flag the things that they're gonna designate for removal before they actually do them. I mean, if that's what you're concerned about.
my concern is just for it to be a little clearer.
Yeah, I
Yes,
understand.
Sometimes when you have invasive species removal plans, it's like everything is wiped out, and you really have to replant after that. Otherwise, things just move
Well-
back in, and sometimes it can be worse than what you take down, especially if you're taking down the overstory. So
Yeah, my understanding was that it's mostly handwork, not,
the
not,
amount of stuff,
right. That's it.
as far as I'm concerned, it's how much and what's going back. I mean, it's good. Invasive species removal is good. It's very time-consuming, takes a long time, and if you don't put something back where you're taking large areas of invasives out, you just get other.
Yeah, I agree. No, like if you had a big stand of knotweed, which actually there is up on the
Yeah.
development area, so if you were to wipe that out and not, in this case,
Anything
put a house on it, then, yeah, you'd have a big bare patch, essentially. So, yeah, I hear your point.
Okay, anything else, Landis?
We can work on getting more detail with that. No, and I think the other thing I asked for was just, since there's been lots of plans and reports and letters and everything, to have a comprehensive list of what you feel is the final plans and documents the commission is gonna close and issue their decision on.
Well, I started to put the list together, but I've been without a computer for a week or so. But we're trying to assemble that list for you and copies of everything to make sure we're all on the same page. And Rob had some thoughts on what the plan set should, what we would provide to the commission as the final plan set with just final revision date. You want to discuss that, Rob?
Yeah, I think we should incorporate everything into one set of plans. I don't wanna have a plan over here with a date, plan over there with a date. We talked about this at the last meeting, so I would pull those supplemental sheets and take the whole entire set and give you a new set with a new set of revision dates. So we would date, if we ended it tonight, I would give you a set and date it tomorrow. And incorporate everything into one set of plans, and that would be the set we go by. I don't think we wanna have, I don't wanna have sheets all over. I can't, there's been so many individual sheets given out now.
Yeah,
it's
right, I
hard to
agree
track
that,
'em all.
that have a comprehensive set of all the latest with the latest revised date on it, seems to make sense.
Right.
So, and, so then just my other notes in my report were to the commission of just how to proceed with, since there's a large variety of information that the commission has received on the resource areas, the degraded riverfront area, our consultants' notes regarding the degraded riverfront area, all which has to be taken into account with their decision. So one of the issues we have is so if the commission closes tonight, we would like to get that list. And then I think issue a decision at the next meeting, which is exactly 21 days from today. But,
If we were to close the hearing, we would like, well, in order to close the hearing, that you would grant us an extension, as Lance just mentioned. Our next meeting is October 30th.
Yeah, so we'd give you an extra week beyond the meeting? Is that what?
We will meet and we can complete our discussion, then we need time to write it up, so to date it. So that would, so we sound reasonable?
A week sounds reasonable, yeah, cause you can vote at that meeting and then, you can sign it, you don't have to sign it in a meeting to make it the date.
We wouldn't have any objections to that, if you, to extending the time.
We
Instead of
need,
21 days from the date of the close of the hearing, we'd bit 28 or 30 days from the date.
I guess,
So we would need you to sign a waiver form.
Yes, I would do that.
okay. As I said, then you have nothing more you want to present information to us at this?
I don't think so.
Okay. So I think the commission feels that we have sufficient information or not.
Or were they gonna put into writing some of the queries that Landis made about exactly what the plantings were gonna be?
Everything's noted on the plan, I think, in terms of the plantings and what the plants are and how many of them being planted. Oh, the invasive. Are you talking about invasive species?
Yeah.
We weren't, I mean, it's something that you do in the field. We can't, there's no way to put a number on them because it's,
It can be in order of condition.
It would be nice if you put a north arrow on these sheets.
I agree.
Well, which corner is which?
Thank you, Jack. Listen, all the money that I pay them, I can't get a north arrow. I'm sorry. It's unbelievable. It's not, listen, and trust me, it's not just these plans, it's a lot of plans.
I should probably have that as a standard comment on GLM plans.
Yes, it is.
I was waiting for Landis to say that. Think about North Down, I don't know what it is.
All right. Any further discussion from the commission? Roger?
As you probably know, the fire department has a brand-new ladder truck, turret truck. And it was brought up tonight on some thing that the radius of turning around up there is a little bit bigger. I was wondering if you contacted them to see if you could drive in and drive out, or whether you're gonna have a permanent monument.
We've had our traffic consultant do a analysis of the cul-de-sac or the turnaround that we've provided with the size of the equipment that they've indicated to us.
Well, this is a brand-new truck, and, I mean, it might be worthwhile to, just run it through the fire chief.
Oh.
That's been addressed.
It has been
I
addressed,
think it has.
It's been an issue that's been brought up.
okay?
We did increase the size of the turnaround from, what's it, 90 feet now instead of what it was before. So we think we comply. And
Okay, well, I don't recall that, but that's good. And you're going to plant some nice native plants and stuff like that, that's good.
Yeah, everything on the plant list is native. Everything on the proposed that Rob was just describing.
Well, you're gonna have enough of the other stuff that's gonna grow anyway.
I'm sorry.
I didn't hear what you
It's
said.
pretty hard to get rid of it all, but at least you're gonna give it a good try.
I'm sorry, were you finished, Roger? I'm sorry. You said you're gonna get rid of the stuff, the invasives, so that, what do you do, so that soil where the invasives are, where the homes will be built, that is going where?
If you can bury it on site, that's the easiest thing.
I think they would, if it's cut up with the rest of the tree material that's being cleared on the site, it gets chipped up and shipped off-site.
Yeah, the plants. The reference was made to the soil around it would have, would be quote saturated with the seeds of the invasives, so that
How
to
do you,
keep
how do
it
you
on
even, how do you
site.
even, how do you do that? I don't know.
I mean, well, it's, to a large degree, it's the same, messy soil on the surface that you're gonna
Right.
consolidate and put under the road anyway, in this case. Otherwise, it gets, you wanna.
Bury it.
You wanna bury it, on site, or if it gets composted adequately, then that kills the plant material. But I think in this case, it's the same material
Okay.
that you're gonna wanna, that Lou had talked about,
Reprocessing.
processing and using underneath the road and foundations. So that obviously takes it out of circulation.
Okay, can we include that in our, whatever we do, that that material would be utilized in an area that would not allow them to sprout up again, for the seeds to become productive?
I think the only fear you would
At
have
that
is
point.
if you used it in the areas where we're planting for restoration. I mean, if
Yeah.
this is all
Mhm.
mixed up with the loom or whatever, and it's used around the foundations and it's lawn, you're not gonna get that.
Right.
But if we use it down, if we take that soil and we transport it down the 25-foot buffer and we use that as our base, we're probably
Well,
gonna
that's
spray.
where we need something that says
So I think a
that
condition
we're,
that says that soil that's gonna be used in the planting areas should not be any of the existing soil on site. We should bring in better, new compost and loam for that top dressing.
okay,
I think that makes sense.
Yeah.
all right.
That would be the only fear. If you mix it up
Right.
with it as lawn, you're not gonna get that stuff spraying down.
Any other comments that you have? Doug, anything else at this point?
No
Medio?
Landis, in your notes, you say I'd recommend that the commission deny this habitat management plan, blah, blah, blah. Have we adequately
Yeah, because it was confusing how it was written, what area was what, because the language was different from what was on the plan. But the way it was explained tonight, what I didn't want to see is the remaining buffer and riverfront area, all the trees and shrubs taken down, because most of them were invasive, and then not plant anything else afterwards, so. I think we'll have to condition this a little better, so that we have a little better understanding of what's gonna be removed.
And then, in your, you list options for issuing order of conditions. Can you talk about that a little bit, or do we want to talk about that right now? You have 3 options.
Sure.
Okay.
So, so there's been a lot of discussion about the site, there's been a lot of discussion on the, riverfront area and the degraded riverfront area. Our consultant felt that, the degraded area should have been more information submitted supporting the area that, the applicant was stating was degraded, based on the time that we spend out in the field and the review that occurred there, as well as their knowledge of the act and, some superseding orders from Amesbury. So that the applicant, and stop me if I'm paraphrasing you wrong, decided that, that they were sticking with the original, determination of the riverfront area, and they decided not to really supplement any of the information on that, soil analysis or determination of the degraded riverfront area. So the commission could approve the project as is if they felt that they could, if you felt that you could condition it, based on, the conditions would be in support of that the applicant has fulfilled all the performance standards under the act. And then, or the commission could, you could approve a portion of the project that you felt the performance standards were met, and deny for reasons the portion that you felt that the performance standards had not been met. You could deny it based on insufficient information, so if you felt that the applicant didn't provide enough information, specifically on the degraded riverfront area determination, you could deny, you could issue the order of conditions and deny based on insufficient information, because you basically asked them for additional information, they decided not to provide it to you. Or you could deny the whole project. Either way, it would go to DEP. So if it was denied based on insufficient information, then DEP would just look at the information that was submitted, and if they agreed with you, they would agree with your order. Otherwise, they would send it back and tell the applicant to provide the information that you've requested.
Can I just make one clarification?
Yes, please do.
You were Paraphrasing.
I'm paraphrasing, yes.
Yes.
Just paraphrasing my written, which I probably should have just read it, because then I would have remembered it more specifically, but please, go ahead.
I get that. We had talked about last time, my assessment that I don't think it's necessary for the commission to concur with the degraded, thanks, Rob. I don't think it's necessary for the commission to concur with the degraded definition in order to approve the project. And we walked through that last time. I'm happy to do it again if you want, but I just wanted to remind, because that I think is an important part of my position on this, and what I feel confident the regs say and allow. Because if you remember, I was talking about avoiding the use of the term degraded and describing it as a beat up area, which I think we can all agree that the area is beat up, whether or not it rises to the definition of degraded. I think it does. Beta had a different view about portions of it, but notwithstanding that, it's not critical. It's not critical for us to meet the regs for you to conclude that area that we have delineated is entirely degraded. That's the clarification.
Okay?
But can you just clarify that, sorry, because that's still under 10.58 3G or whatever it is, which is the section of the riverfront pertaining to degraded riverfront areas. So I think that's where the somewhat confusion was last time when we were discussing it.
I think that's the important distinction, is that section that I'm referring to is not part of the degraded provision. There's degraded provisions, and I'm trying to find it's easier to find it here.
10.5.
Saying so it's so beat up that it holds no value or no interests of the riverfront areas, so it can be developed.
I didn't say no. I didn't say no value, no interests. But what I said was diminished.
Diminished enough to build on it.
Well, diminished enough that that given what's proposed to be developed, when you consider what's proposed to be developed, what's proposed to be restored down at in the lower portion, and we've got the planting plan, we've got topsoil, we've got new plantings, we've talked about that, it's now all on the plan. And then we have, restoration of cleanup and restoration and planting of the other 25-foot buffer along the BVW, and then we've got.
So you're saying that those benefit, that's what they're getting for the using of the diminished riverfront area?
Yes. And then the invasives that in the aggregate, because if you remember that provision, it talks about, where direct square footage is not, a useful measure, words to that effect.
No, I understand what you're coming from. I think that, yeah. the certain areas would occur even if you didn't have, even if the commission didn't allow the building on the diminished riverfront area. There would still be a 25-foot no alteration area, restoration occurred.
Well, I mean, that's the commission's discretion,
Right.
and the, you know, frankly, the tricky part is that, you know, unlike, you know, if you have BVW fill and replication, you know, you're talking about apples to apples. And this provision is specifically written for, you know, when you have apples and oranges, you know, is 3 apples worth 6 oranges. And it's different, and it grants the commission, you know, you know, really relatively broad discretion to do that, you know, where unlike, you know, and it, as I said, it talks about, you know, where, you know, direct area measurement isn't necessary.
I know, I mean, we could probably debate this forever, but you're saying if the commission allows the filling or alteration complete forever, because there's buildings on it, of the, what is it, I think it's 8,000 square feet now of degraded area, I can't remember exact, because it keeps on changing, somewhere around 8,000, that there's gonna be other benefits to the area that they wouldn't have received if they didn't allow the 8,000 plus square feet of degraded area to be altered.
Right, if this project weren't happening, you know, there wouldn't be that.
We're talking about how it should happen, so, and I think the commission should look at that, how it's.
Well, obviously, the mitigation, you know, Lou's not gonna do the mitigation if he doesn't build the project. So that's, I mean,
Right, the 3,000 square feet of riverfront restoration and the mitigation of the invasive species. That I would call the mitigation of the riverfront area.
I mean, it's all, you know, it's all part of the same project. I mean, what, I guess I'm not following your point. Cause it's, I mean, the project,
I'm
there's a.
just saying what the commission should look at is, under the regular regs, you would be allowed 5,000 square feet or 10% of the riverfront area, which comes out to about 5,000. But with this degraded area or somewhat degraded area, however you wanna classify it, they are getting 8,000 plus additional square feet to develop because of that. So it's not riverfront area that's gonna be improved, it's riverfront area that's gonna be gone. And yes, there's some improvements to the riverfront area that's being left, and I guess that's what you have to weigh, if those improvements outweigh the development of the additional 8,000 and total 13,000, I think, square feet of riverfront area that will become developed, houses and pavements and stuff.
I think that's reasonably put.
I think that's the way you have to look at it.
All right, does that answer your question?
Can you,
Bring up another one.
It's a hard one, this is a hard
Yeah,
Any-
yeah.
decision.
Anything else at this point, Emilio? Okay.
Another question?
Roger? No. Betsy?
No, not at the moment, no.
Al?
My big hangup is still installing the water and sewer utility pipes next to the brook and digging the trench right next to the bank of the brook. And I want to make sure that we condition it in such a way that when this is done, that the brook doesn't collapse into the excavated trench and destroy the brook. Now, whether or not we can do that by conditioning that the applicant provide an engineer and an environmental person on site during that part of the project, I'm not convinced that just the fact that you're gonna use a trenching box, because I've seen and used trenching box many times, I'm not convinced that that's necessarily going to prevent the brick from collapsing. So that's my major concern of this project. In regards to degraded, okay, when you read on the plan here, it says, all waste materials, ash, metal, and other non-natural debris will be collected and removed from the riverfront area. Well, we've been debating over what is degraded and what isn't degraded, and I would put it in a different context. If you have a backyard to your house and you are planting a garden there, do you want to plant a garden, whether it's flowers or vegetables, in soils that have come from some industrial process? And I'm not sure what the industrial process was there. And that industrial used soils dumped in that spot and spread around, and it then grows some trees and shrubs, and some of which are invasive and some of which are not invasive. And then we are faced with the issue, is this degraded or not, because it has trees and shrubs and other plants growing there. I wouldn't want that kind of soil in my backyard next to where I'm living. And if we can get that kind of material removed or capped under a roadway, to me, that's a positive improvement in the spot. And if it's necessary to have something in exchange for doing that, well, that's probably the cost of doing business. But I think that the fact that some interpretations are based on the fact that there's stuff growing there, well, that doesn't mean that we like that kind of soil and the stuff that's in it. There are some kinds of metals that we don't consider hazardous, and there's some metals we consider hazardous. So if the metals that are not hazardous are there in unnatural amounts, to me, that's a degraded soil that came from some industrial process. Whether it looked to me like some of that sandy black stuff came from a foundry process. And we did have foundries operating in Norwood and Walpole for many years. Okay, so some of that material could have been dumped there. You know, when they make cast iron in a foundry, they make a mold out of very special kinds of sand, and they pack it around a model, and then they take the model out and it leaves a hole, and you pour the hot iron into the sand mold, okay, and then you chip away that old sand and dump it. You don't ever use it over again. So it had to be disposed of. Some of that soil looked to me like that kind of material. There was also ash and big clunkers from burning some kind of soft coal. Okay, once the soft coal is burned, there's two things that come from it. One thing that comes from it is ash, which is toxic, and we've seen evidence of problems with that in recent months in this country, where ash landfills have collapsed. And the other product that comes from burning the coal is these cinders. Well, we use a building material now, we call them cinder blocks. Well, they're not cinder blocks, now they're made of cement. But originally, cinder blocks were made from this cinder material, crushed up and put in a mold, and the cinder blocks, if you find one, it's lighter weight than concrete blocks, and it's darker gray. And it's all over the part of the country where we used coal to make gas for our domestic gas production. You know, natural gas that we're using now is different than what gas we used to use. Boston Gas had plants. There was one in Norwood where they burned the coal to make coal gas. And coal gas was poison, a little different than the natural gas that we have today. But the results of burning that coal to make the gas are all over the place, and maybe some of this degraded, what I call degraded, came from some of those kind of operations. I know that there was a gas plant in Norwood. We finally got rid of that. But where did the ash go? And where did the burned sand from foundries go? Well, maybe some of it went right there, and that's what now we're debating, whether that's degraded or not. Well, it isn't natural material, and maybe if we can get that unnatural material covered up, like in a capped landfill, that's fine. That's something to think about here. That's all I have.
Okay. All right, thanks everybody for your comments. I think having seen this site and spent time there with Beta and with the applicant, that there's no question that some of that area is degraded. Is all the area that they have noted, would it meet a degraded definition? And that's some of what's been debated over the last number of weeks. At this point, I would like to open it in the audience. If anybody has any comments or questions, please identify yourself for the record. Any comments? Okay. Based on this, are you ready to close the hearing? Is someone going to make that a motion?
There's a
Wait minute.
question.
I'm sorry, Liz Barrows, Union Street, East Walpole. I have a question about that. You're referring to closing the hearing this evening and then the applicant submitting, I guess, same content, just formatted differently. Is that like a more concise plan, since there's been comprehensive plans, since there's been so many amendments? Is that allowed to submit something different after the close of the hearing?
There wouldn't be any change in the plan. We have to decide which of these two, like the supplement D and B, right? Which one is our preference?
I think they're
No, there's no
different.
preference. So
Totally
No, they're
different.
both different.
Yeah.
we're just gonna incorporate them into one set, because they've been filed.
Okay,
individually.
but we need to decide which one.
So we're gonna do one comprehensive set of plans, nothing's going to be
However.
No,
Yeah,
no
but-
new information,
We're
that's
gonna
the
give you
standard.
one complete set with a new revision page, so you have something to reference. So you're not referencing that sheet and the other sheet, and then the last set that was given to you, and you got dates all over, so it'll be one comprehensive
You
set
gave
of
us-
all plans.
Oh, no, is that B and, okay, but you did,
Those Those
we
two
didn't,
sheets will be in that set,
yeah, okay, but you gave us supplement D last week, right?
correct, that was the new one.
Okay. And we had to decide whether we wanted that one or the previous.
I think we're gonna keep them both, I'm just gonna keep everything in one set.
Yeah, but you're not, which one are you gonna build?
You had two
No,
different,
No, one gives you the planting, the other
No.
one gives you the breakdown.
You changed,
I know
you
what he means.
changed,
So remove the
Yeah.
buildings.
you changed the, number of buildings and where they
Oh,
are,
they'll all reflect that, those buildings that are on that supplemental B.
which is supplement
B.
32 units with,
yeah.
no
And-
buildings in the
Folder.
riverfront.
D,
Correct, so that's
So the
32
late-
units with no building work going on in the
Okay.
non-degraded area. They'll all reflect that plan,
okay,
all the other sheets within the set. would be reflected.
okay. So you decided,
Whenever
all
I
right.
change
You
them,
gave us
I
a
file
choice,
them.
you gave us a choice last meeting, that's all. However, I don't know, does that I'm not sure what your question is.
I'm Kathy Campbell, 35 Burns Ave. I think what I'm struggling to understand is if you close the meeting tonight and Rob submits a comprehensive set of plans and Lou is working on a comprehensive list of documents and putting together whatever documents that you guys would now use to make your decision on, is that like, I guess coming from ZBA, everything has to be in before the meeting closes. So if you close this evening, you're allowed to take additional information.
It's not additional information, it's just an organization of the plans and the documents. It's not additional information. If they submit something and I said, no, our final revised plans is this, why are you submitting this? Then it would be what the final revised plans that have been submitted. It's just organizing it, really.
Okay, so it would go with what was being submitted or what you already had submitted?
Whatever the final, the last revised plans that they're submitting, which is this deed dated.
Supplement D revision is 9/25.
That's the latest revision and the other
Supplement
final revised
B
plans.
is 9/25.
Everything in your possession,
Yes, they're just gonna organize them.
And if something is different, it would be what was already in your possession.
Right.
I thought that a list had not been
Yeah, you-
presented
Well-
by the applicant.
Well, it's not our responsibility to provide the list. We're trying to organize so that in the order of conditions, they list all of the documents that have been the basis for their decision.
Your final version.
Right. So we've had numerous correspondence going back and forth between Ecotech, Oxbow, GLM, Beta. All of those documents get listed in the order of conditions so that that's what forms the basis of the commission's order.
So the meeting closes tonight, you submit,
I'm gonna try and help Landis with a list. I mean, it's not,
and so what, can you just kind of walk, I'm sorry, I didn't understand the timeframe. If the meeting closes tonight, Lou submits his documents, and then at the next meeting, October 30th, you would make a decision?
If I may,
Yes, thank
the regs allow the commission 21 days after the close of a hearing to issue a decision.
Okay.
Their quandary is that 21 days they don't meet again until 21 days from today. So that if they were held to that, they would have to deliberate, vote, and issue in the same night, which is a problem administratively, just getting the paperwork out, getting it signed. So they raised that issue, and Lou's basically gonna give them an extra week or so, whatever is decided, beyond the 21 days, just basically to allow them the time to meet, make a decision, create conditions, and then for staff to then go and actually produce the paperwork and get it signed. Because it would, otherwise their meeting schedule and that 21 days would put them in a jam, that's all.
Thank you. And so does that get discussed at the next meeting, or is that just delivered?
No, we would vote on, the vote now is to close the hearing.
Correct.
The vote on the 30th would be to approve, and issue an order of conditions, partially approve, partially deny, or deny the application at that hearing, and then write, anyway, we've got to do some paperwork to go along with our decision. And that, so that the next meeting we would, on the 30th, we would do that. But this would be to close the hearing, so there'll be no more information provided. And it's up to the commission to evaluate what has been presented over these many meetings.
And just to clarify, we have been keeping track of the revised plans and all the documents and stuff, and Amy's been doing a great job with that. It's just, what I'm asking is, if you could just send a list.
Oh, yeah,
I'm
no,
gonna
no.
make sure that we don't need help, or just
Yeah.
make sure we're both on the same page, which
Right.
we should be. That's all. That's all we need.
I think everybody appreciates, there's been a significant amount of information and documents presented, so that they all get noted for whatever purposes needed in the future. Okay?
No, I totally understand. So if, aside from Lou providing his confirmatory list, if we were to ask Amy or the conservation for that list of, for those list of documents, can we get that list of documents to see if there's anything that we would be interested in looking at in addition to that?
It's public record, I mean.
Yeah.
I didn't know if, I didn't.
All information, public.
Yeah.
Oh,
But
yeah,
if
sure.
there's a list that you're going to regular conditions
Sure.
over, I probably have most of it. but
Right.
If I could ask for that list, that would be great.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Anything else? Okay, so we'll make a motion to close the hearing.
So move.
Second?
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained. 600.
Do you want something in writing for extension of the
Yeah, Amy has
timeline?
a form and she
Oh,
needs to sign.
Amy's so good.
I don't need this one. I don't need that one. I'm gonna take the small one.
So we're not putting a specific date here?
Recycle.
No, it says this letter authorizes commission to extend the 21-day requirement, so.
You can stick in if there's, if you want to.
Okay. Is that all right, Landis? 30 days from tonight? Does that work for you?
Yeah, that should work, 30 days from tonight. Okay, do we want to put the time on the agenda for the discussion?
Oh, yes, we should do.
All right, we've got what,
Well, do you wanna-
7:30?
23rd.
What's that Old Town Road?
Is that you?
Big a deal, is it?
I don't know, it depends.
Well, all right, we'll put it on at 7:45. We have a,
I forgot, you have one piece on the commission, piece on.
we have a 7:30, just for your information, that we will bring this, put this on our agenda for 7:45 on October 30th.
Halloween.
You don't have to dress up, Rob, it's okay.
Do we have you guys next on this?
No, not you guys. We're gonna leave them.
All right, someone make that a motion for 7:45 for
So move.
discussion of Burns
Second.
Avenue. All in favor? Aye, opposed, abstained. 600.
Is that on next?
Yep.
What do we got?
I'm gonna sit in the audience and listen.
This is for,
A request for a minor modification
Is
to,
this lot 6? Oh, I see it on here, okay.
Minor application, here we go.
So, this, here to discuss a minor modification, what I consider a minor modification to the, one of the lots on, lot 6, Boyden Lane, Boyden Estates. Previously, the commission issued an order of conditions and the wetland delineation, with the wetland delineation that's shown on this plan right here. And, recently, it's been several years since this wetland line was, flagged out, so we, this past summer, we had the wetland line, wetland reflagged or reevaluated, and, the line is slightly different from, what was originally shown on the approved plans. The biggest problem with this, lot, if you've been out at the site, you know that it's a very steep slope to the back. What we're trying to do is move the house forward, and, get it further away so we can create more of a flat backyard on the back of the lot. So we've asked for consideration to, the no disturb line from, 25 feet down to 15 feet at the point of this, wetland line, or this extension of the wetland. And, allow us to move the house forward. It actually allows, the house to be about 25 feet further away from the back of the lot. So, that's why I'm here tonight. Whether or not it's considered a minor modification, or whether or not you want me to refile for a new notice of intent, I can do that as well. We're gonna do that. That's what the commission chooses to do. That's, essentially what I have here tonight.
Okay. Landis?
So it doesn't fit the criteria as a minor modification. It doesn't fit the criteria of amendment either, because there's a change in the resource area. As well as it's a delineated wetlands, which is a lockdown line for 3 years, and it hasn't been 3 years
Well,
yet.
again, we're trying to complete the subdivision, so to the extent that, if it hasn't been exactly 3 years, I'll go back to the, documentation as to when the wetland line was first flagged for the subdivision. I believe it's been over 3 years, but it's not 3 years from the date that the commission issued the order. It'll be 3 years in March. But if we want to proceed with development of that lot and sort of, expedite completion of the subdivision, and, I'm asking the commission to, consider this proposal to move the house closer to the street and adopt the new wetland line that we've, surveyed.
Okay.
So
That's your comment?
That's my
Okay.
comment as well as
Okay.
town council's comment. It's not a minor, it's not an amendment, it's a new notice of intent. And, it shouldn't be done yet because the 3 years hasn't passed. As well as there was quite a bit of discussion about this wetlands during the original filing, so, he's also asking for a waiver for the, no alteration area.
Okay. Doug? Any questions?
Well, it looks like on your more recent plan, it's a reduced wetland area, right?
It is,
How-
it is.
How much is it reduced? Square footage wise?
I
Or
don't know
percent-
square footage wise.
Percentage?
Where it shrank most was in the tip. got reduced by about 10 or 12 feet in this location, which is the primary, obstacle that is pushing the house back, because your regulation says that the no disturb runs parallel to the limit of a wetland. Doesn't contemplate what happens when the wetland comes to a point. So the point actually is detrimental to the lot because it pushes it out. But actually the horizontal line is here and the horizontal line is here. And if you wanna consider this to be the horizontal line, that's what really drives the location of and development of the lot. So, I'm perfectly happy finding a new notice of intent, but, it just seems to be, something that could be handled a little bit easier than the notice of intent.
Anything else, Doug? Okay. Emilio?
And why do you want a waiver of the 25-foot?
So I can move this house closer away from this slope. You can see this all slopes down. We've had a situation where homeowners want a flat backyard, and so that's what happens when you have flat backyards. So people want not to be on the slope, so they can avoid it. So that's why what we're trying to do there.
Okay.
Roger, any questions?
Well, I would prefer maintaining the 25-foot no alteration zone, if at all possible, and move the house accordingly.
Right, I understand that would be the desire. I mean, your regulations allow for a variation, so I'm asking for the variation.
Well, I realize that, but that was made my wish. So you could do two things. One is you could move the house closer because the wetland is smaller and not as long, if I'm reading it right. And you still maintain the 25 feet and move the house closer, still. So you still have front row. I see the,
I think, if I could, we are proposing to maintain a 10-foot no disturb zone there, and if there's something that would be, alternative to the setback, to the 25-foot, then we would be interested in hearing if the commission would consider something like that, either plantings or other things that would, other than lawn area in that particular area. It's just that the 25 feet and then having a nice graded front yard, it just pushes the house back onto the lot.
well,
Anything else, Roger?
I think, I think you got a lot of merit there. I mean, and I think 15 feet is probably reasonable. 20 feet would be better. Maybe 18, I don't know. Give it some thought.
I'm asking for as much relief as I can get, so.
I know that.
Other than the 25, if I can get, if something can be worked out where it's 15, any
Well,
relief that you can give me would be appreciated.
It's not really a hardship that I see. You got plenty of area. I don't know the lot, so I can't really make that judgment. But generally speaking, we seem to be working very hard about trying to maintain the 25-foot buffers. And if there is some type of compromise, or when you look at it again, maybe there's another way.
May I make a suggestion? If we maintain the 25-foot on each side and then just a 10 or 15-foot on this tip, would that be something that would be?
That would be more.
Okay.
Anything else, Roger?
No.
Betsy?
Yeah, two comments and a question. The purview of this commission is the resource areas and the wetlands, and not the layouts of backyards, painful as that is, because actually I wouldn't mind chiming in on backyards that are like either this big or slope down off of a cliff. I mean, I think that's just crazy. I hate those kind of backyards, and we're seeing them over and over again. But it's not our purview. Our purview is the wetland. That lot should not have a house that size on it with the driveway where it is. If you need to build on that lot, it needs to be away from the wetland. 25 foot that's a hard one. Ruling of ours. That's important. And I'm wondering about the two wetland consultants. Is it the same person, or is it two different people that are like contradicting each other?
It's the same.
Oh, the same person.
Well, actually,
Oh.
it's the same, I did the recent one just a couple months ago, I can't remember the exact date, but I just wrote it up the other day, but, and then Scott Jordan from my office did it, I wanna say it was 2014 or 15. So, I mean,
So-
and the wetland, if you look at it, it's apparently, cause this is the first time I've actually seen a survey of it. And if you look, it's actually wider in the front and truncated a little bit in the back. So it's, there's some deviation, in either direction. I don't know what the difference is. I don't think they're huge. It's kind of a strange wetland in that, the water flows on. And I did see it back in the time, when we did flag it. I looked at it real quick. I didn't have time to flag it. Scott went back and flagged it. And both times that I've been there, there's water flowing on, and then we use the term, it goes blind. It must be good, high permeability soils, because the wetland, as you go down slope, the wetland disappears, which is somewhat unusual, not entirely so. But so it is a little bit of a different, it's not a situation where you have kind of a nice break in slope, and there's the wetland at the bottom, and everybody's gonna make the same call. It's a little bit of it's a tough wetland to flag. I mean, for the 15 or so flags there, I spent a long time figuring it out.
So what would you attribute the shrinking of that in just a couple of years? That seems kind of strange to me, doesn't it? Isn't it?
Well, I mean, I think in part it's just slightly different conditions. I mean, how much did it move? How much?
It shrank from the tip.
Right, but how many feet? I mean.
About 12, 10, 12 feet.
Yeah, in that situation, because, again, and it's a judgment call, Scott was maybe, very conservative about what he flagged. Because again, it's unusual because you have wetland conditions that taper off as you move further into the wetland, which is not typically what you see. Usually you go down gradient and you're adding watershed and it's getting wetter. This is the reverse of that.
Is
So-
it like a spring or something?
No, it's the opposite of a
Oh,
spring
it's
in
a
that,
spring.
I think if you remember.
in that it's, like I said, we use the term that the flow goes blind. It drops into the ground.
Yeah, and we had discussion about this during the subdivision hearing where this just disappears into the ground.
And there wasn't much flow when I was there, but there was a little bit of flow in the upper part right next to the road. And then, kind of, a third halfway through the delineated area, all of a sudden there's no flow, just perks into the ground.
And we had discussions about that particular lot and it being a little wetlands in the middle of it and how you would construct your house.
Yeah, so now like I said, we can construct.
I'm saying, wow, that's not a very good
I don't-
lot
I-
shape to put a house.
I
But
personally
you're gonna
don't-
redrawn your lines at that point and you
Well,
wouldn't be in this situation
I'm
as
just
you are
going-
now
I'm
with
just
having to,
I'm just going by your regulations. Your regulations allow for a request for a variation of the 25 foot.
self-imposed.
If it's a hard line, then why have the phrase and why have the provision in your bylaw, in your regulations? Well, I'm here to request a variation. It's plain and simple. I mean, and the reason why I'm asking for it is because the wetland line has moved slightly and the 25 foot area in this particular location is punitive to the lot. And I'm trying to make it a better situation for a future homeowner there. Plain and simple. If you're not,
Okay. Well, heard you. Anything else? Betsy, did you
Well,
have?
no, no.
Al?
Do we have worksheets for this wetland line and
Yes.
soil tests at these,
Can't be a minor modification.
these
No, let's
points?
get there.
I did do test plots at, forget what flag. It's
You
written
may
on.
want to hang on to those anyhow.
I brought it once.
Al, I will point out one thing that's interesting is actually, and again, this is somewhat unusual wetland. If you look at my test plot, my wetland test plot has non-hydric soils. But I felt that it had, you know, an indicator of hydrology, and with the drainage patterns in there. So, as you said, it's unusual. I mean, I heard you chuckle that, I mean, you know, not too often that people who delineate wetlands are gonna tell you that their wetland plot had non-hydric soils.
Yeah.
But that's, you know, that's the
Yeah,
case, but
okay.
I did feel that it met the other indicator of hydrology, and therefore flagged it in.
So the soils at the end there are sandy and the water disappears right down into the water table, which we don't know how deep it is.
Right, yeah, no, I can say that unequivocally, because on both occasions when I've been there, I've seen water flowing, you know, walk a few paces, no more water.
Where's the intermittent stream?
There's a little,
Because usually we label those.
well, there's a little bit of a thread of a stream, it's pretty subtle, you know, coming out of the pipe. It goes really just for a few feet, you know, interior here, and then, you know, the water kind of spreads out, moves down, and as Al said, it just drops into the ground.
So it's glacial till.
Well, I suspect that you probably have, you know, till up here, and then, you know, moving into some outwash
Yeah.
that then is dropping down.
But
Okay,
then it's your,
the question before us
Yeah.
is, do we
It's-
consider this a minor or major for an amendment?
It's not minor because
No.
it's changing the wetland.
yeah,
So that, this other discussion is more pertinent to what you need to do with a filing. Why, otherwise it would have just put it to a vote, a major amendment, or you have to file. You will have to, well, all right, first of all, someone make this a motion to consider this not a minor and not eligible for a minor amendment.
I move it's not a minor amendment.
second.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So that issue is decided. The purpose of allowing this other discussion is to give you something to look at with, you're gonna have to do a filing. So now you've heard some of the discussion you're gonna need to address. You need the buffer zone on here. I just see, do we have a 10-foot buffer? Well, you should show the 25-foot
Mhm.
no disturb. If you want us to consider a partial waiver of the 25-foot no disturb, you've given us a reason why you want it, but what are you gonna do
In
to
exchange.
to mitigate that request? What are you going to do, quote, for us to give us something to justify altering our normal 25-foot no disturb? And this isn't an indication that it will be accepted, it's just one of the things that would come up in a discussion with a filing,
Okay,
okay?
fair enough.
So I think as I said, you may want to say this. The other thing is, I don't believe Landis has had a chance to review this new wetland line, have you?
No, because they haven't filed with us.
Yeah, so that will also have to be done.
I'll submit a new filing,
Okay,
and, we'll proceed from that.
okay.
We have another Boyden Estates thing here.
Was that- Okay.
Good night, thank you.
Right.
Um, There's really nothing.
No,
Well
I had
done.
just made a recommendation to the commission that we get an as-built plan for lot 5.
Yeah. Yeah.
You sent
Because-
it to them, right? Sent them a letter?
Hmm?
You sent them a letter requesting that?
I think I sent him an email requesting that. He said he would do it when he's ready to do it. But the order of conditions states that you request a certificate of compliance to get the as-built upon the work being completed. And since there's a discrepancy of if he's filled more than was approved on the amendment, then I think he needs to provide us with an as-built and the minor modification.
Did we get any feedback? Do we know if he's paid the fine or that he hasn't?
As far as I know, he hasn't. We haven't gotten confirmation that he has.
I don't know, how much time did he have?
I think he had 10 days, but I keep on asking town council for the document that she received from the magistrate, but I haven't got it back. She hasn't sent it to me yet, so.
And the other issue with that, if an applicant owes the town money for taxes or including fines, according to the description the town council gave us, that I have to look at what the wording, we can revoke a permit? Right? Which would mean we could
Email, I didn't print that email.
Way I read that is we could revoke or put a hold on the order of conditions. And if this, if he's gonna make a filing, that, what we've done in the past is hold the hearing, but we hold off on the order until those issues are settled. I think we need to clarify whether we even hold the hearing. In the past, we've held the hearings.
Right.
However, this is a little different. What is the proper way not to allow the hearing to go forward? We makes an application, advise him of that, or do it at the public hearing, or hold the hearing and hold off the order. I think we need to get our ducks lined up. Which also comes up to this Burns Avenue. What is,
Well, I don't think we can apply to that because that's
under the bylaw that we
not
find
under
them,
the
right?
bylaw, right? That's only under the Wetlands Protection Act.
Okay, so the
It's-
Burns Avenue
It's
would,
the charter, it's the town charter.
Town chowder.
yeah.
Town charter.
Right.
You eat with tomato or cream?
Unless she said any state, federal, or local permits, but I would think not. I don't know about that email, actually, I should have printed it. I sent it to you, though.
Yeah, so, So that's some, we need to
So
find
he's
out.
claiming he can appeal that, even though the magistrate said he couldn't, but he's saying he can.
Okay, if, well, I guess we'll find out. Would we be notified if he does, is allowed to appeal? Would the town be notified?
Well, if he appeals somehow, I'm sure the town, is that what you're asking? If he appeals
I mean,
in some way?
would we know about
We
it?
would definitely know about it, yeah.
Okay,
I would think.
I would think so, but, you know, not having been down this route, who knows what makes sense and what doesn't make sense. Okay, so we have, minutes from, September 25th. Somebody want to move those?
I'll move them.
You got a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstained? 501. Okay, the wetland filing fee account, we need to request from the Board of Selectmen to access the account. We're gonna request $10,000. This is an amount that we put in without a time frame. It's not based on a fiscal year or anything. It's there till we use it up. And I don't know what the last one we asked for was, whatever,
How much is on the account?
88, oh, that's expended. What's in the account?
It's like 78.
78,172 and 49 cents.
Whoa.
78,000.
Why would we meet here? We should meet like downtown somewhere.
Right?
If we can apply it to, application to the Wetlands Protection Act, we could do that. All right, so I need a motion to request $10,000 for these hours. Okay, what goes, Amy's hours for the meetings, I believe,
Yes.
are taken from that fund, and some of Landis's hours.
Right, they take 2 hours every week from mine, and then if there's any additional hours, they'll use them.
So,
I would hope, and I would even maybe recommend or request that my full hours be actually written in the budget, but it's up to the town administrator to do that.
well, it was a question of,
They just want to get some of this money, that's all.
it's one
All
thing,
right,
the
that's okay.
money's there, so we should use it, and you do spend a fair amount of your time administering the act, so I think it's reasonable to utilize those funds, and the amount keeps growing. So I think it's judicious on our part to continue to access those funds and use them. So take a motion to request the Board of Selectmen $10,000 for access, or from the State Wetlands Protection Fee account to be applied to,
Salaries.
salaries for administering the Wetlands Protection Act by secretary and our agent.
So move.
A second?
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained. Good. Thank you. 600. Now, I gotta sign something here?
Yep.
This. Next, $10,000.
This is chair conservation. That's where you want to sign.
Okay. So we fill that in, 10,000?
Yep. You can put 10,000, change it to 30.
On, let's say October 9th.
Yes.
Commission voted to approve enforcement of the Wetlands Protection Act.
And then Jody will put in the exact amount and sign it down here, so you don't have to put it anything there. And then it'll go
Okay.
to the Board of Select-
And let me know, 'cause they usually want a explanation of what this is about, so let me know.
I'll have to get it on there relatively soon, 'cause
Yeah,
it actually is going faster than I anticipated.
you're gonna have to get an IOU somewhere. All right, we've got,
Certificate of compliance?
yeah, we've
Right,
got
so
that
that-
meeting
oh.
on the 29th. I don't know if that's a Board of Selectmen's night or not. Was that determined, that
It
open
was
space?
not a Board of Selectmen night.
Okay, so then it would
Is
be,
that this he's talking about?
I think so, yeah.
29th.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so October 29th is the Open Space and Recreation Plan public meeting workshop for
we
input.
made- before November 12th. I could make the 12th, but not after that. Somewhere between now and then.
Okay.
All right. Okay. So what do we on, wetland? Easement on Cobb's Pond?
Right, so the DOT stuff, that the documents are still being commented and changed by town council, so town council wants some language on the right of entry, and once that's revised, then I'll put it on the agenda for either the 30th or November 13th. And that's for DOT to use a portion of the land, which is conservation, for their fixing Route 1A, Main Street.
So it's a temporary,
It's a temporary construction easement. And it's not an easement, right of entry. It was an easement, now it's a right of entry. It's a temporary right of entry along the shoulder.
There's a small amount, small
It's a small
area.
amount.
There are
Is this the
several,
resurfacing of the rework on 1A?
Yes.
And where they want to go in on the left-hand side at the pond, that little entrance way?
By Cobb's Pond,
Yeah,
yes.
yeah. Maybe we could get them to get rid of all the dead trees along,
So once we have the language for the right of entry locked down and the signature for the Board of Selectmen and the Concom, I'm gonna put them on the agenda and they will come and you can ask them questions.
well, because that's the stuff is dead and not taken care of, and, you know, it's a hazard there. I used to go over the fence and look down at the dam, but I don't do it anymore.
Right.
okay?
So keep that in mind, to ask them about that.
Okay, 1900 Main Street, I thought, didn't we put them on the agenda?
We asked them to provide us with a report for this meeting, and you put them on the agenda for the next meeting. We received nothing from them. I talked to Board of Health to ask how the progression of the tight tank was going, because the engineer provided us with information that seemed like it was going to be done soon. They have done nothing since November 2018. So,
Did we get in touch with the engineer, whatever, forget his name, but
no, no,
if he was gonna get us,
he was, and he didn't.
What's the selectman doing about his license?
There is, some stuff that is not for discussion during a public hearing, that they went
Okay.
into executive session that they are doing.
I went by there today and I looked in the gate, there must be 100
There's
vehicles
a ton of cars.
in that lot in the back.
God.
I don't know, you can get any more.
Right.
And it just looked like it was full.
Yes.
All right, so should we send a letter how disappointed we were that we didn't get a response that was promised? And-
I am, for one, kind of tired of holding their hand through everything, so it's their responsibility to
Yeah.
do stuff.
Well, do
Yeah.
you want to, are you suggesting that we issue a fine for lack of,
He's coming the next
Information.
meeting,
Well, I
right?
think that you put
Is
him
he-
on the agenda for the next meeting, so.
At 9:05 or something, right?
Again, if,
no, he wanted to be here before,
Oh, okay, but he is,
but it's not on the agenda.
I thought he was coming,
That's what I thought, but you want to be here early.
yeah. I thought it was gonna be at 9:05 or
No.
something.
put on the agenda for the 30th?
No, you said you were gonna, you tabled putting him on the agenda because you were gonna read what he was supposed to write.
Oh, but I actually thought we had kind of agreed with him, because we were like,
We never set a time, never voted
I
that
thought-
would
I
be
thought
put
we-
on the.
did, because we were trying to accommodate his wife's schedule. And as we were
No.
trying not to make him be late.
Right, because he offered to come tonight and said that he couldn't be here after 9
Right,
due to
then,
the nurse. And then that's when you guys said, no, just give us a written thing,
oh, yeah,
and then we'll, after,
That's right, that's
judging
right.
based on what he
That's right.
writes.
that's right, that's
you'll
right.
go on and see if you want him on the next agenda. but it
Yes,
wasn't.
yes, yes.
So based on what he wrote,
Oh, dear.
We have his address, right?
you have a letter from him, which,
So I think we should respond to him that we did not receive the information he promised to get us by October 9th, and we'd like a response.
Mhm.
Please respond prior to our next meeting, which is October 30th. I would copy 1900 Main Street and indicate that if we don't receive information, that we will consider fines. Put them on notice that we are considering fines. All right? All right? So we can find them next meeting if it's not, if we don't get a response. All right with everybody?
Oh, that's great.
Okay. Boyden Estates, we took care of, I think. Sort of. Certificate of compliance, is that ready?
yes.
Someone want to move that?
I'll move it.
Second.
Any further discussion, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, 600.
While we're signing, what's going on with the Red Cherry?
New ownership,
Yeah, for what?
pizza bar.
Pizza bar?
What
Pizza
happened to the
and
Red
bar.
Cherry?
A
Why-
pizza and bar?
Well, I mean, I.
Okay,
would
not a
assume-
nail salon, but a
No.
pizza and bar.
Pizza bar and a
wanted
nail
another
salon.
We need
nail
another nail
salon.
salon.
in
A
the
nail
back.
salon slash
You could
smoothie
eat
parlor.
pizza while getting your nails done. No, I guess that wouldn't
I
work.
like it. I think you're onto something there.
You could eat pizza while
wanted
getting
the
your
chowder,
toes
though.
done.
Oh, yeah.
So a pizza bar, in other words, they have a liquor license.
I have no idea, that's just, it's England Pizza Bar.
Could be a
DBA
bar with different kinds of
DBA
pizza.
Crisp is,
Chowder.
I mean, is it a chain?
I think there's something similar down in the Cape,
Pizza.
possibly.
The,
But I lost pizza, and I saw the word bar, so.
Hey,
Pizza bar.
sounds, it's wicked good.
Pizza bar with some chowder.
I like it.
Okay, Because they did close, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. I
And there's
thought
like a
it was-
giant dumpster, and the signs are all ripped down, and, yeah.
Did you issue the certificate of compliance?
We just did that. And we don't have any comments then for 1049 Main Street? No comments, right?
No jurisdiction was my only
jurisdiction.
comment.
All right, anybody have anything else?
Why are we not meeting on the 23rd instead of,
Town meeting.
town meeting?
Town meeting's is
Can everyone make the
21st.
30th?
Yes. I mean, are we agreed about the summer thing that we were talking about? Like different dates, July and August? You suggested that it not be the 4th, it should be the second Wednesday?
Yeah.
Okay, we need to all kind of get on the same page with that.
I don't know, has everybody looked at the, any of the other, what am I looking at
My
next year?
calendar doesn't go out that far, so I just wanna make sure we're all doing the right thing.
Okay, so that would be June 8th, I'm sorry, July 8th
And August 12th.
and August 12th.
I don't know, what do you guys think? It's all right?
Typically, we have met the second Wednesday of July and August.
Right. Okay.
Stick with that, and it gives us. Okay. Anybody have anything else then? We got that. Do we have to vote on the calendar? The 30th is okay with everybody, right?
Yeah.
I'm not sure, I'll have to check my calendar at home. So 30th wasn't originally on the,
No, it would normally have been, well, I think it would not have been the 23rd because the town meeting is the 21st, and you gotta figure that it's gonna go at least 2 days. It's not, it doesn't look like it's a huge agenda, but you never know how long any given item may take, so you gotta figure it's gonna run 2 days.
But there is a controversial one.
Yeah,
Well,
sure.
what appears to be controversial or what appears not to be controversial doesn't
never know.
necessarily mean
never
what's
know,
gonna
yeah.
happen, so.
You just never know.
okay, I'm good. My wife just told me I already have it on my calendar.
Uh-huh.
The
Yeah, I
30th.
thought you did, because we decided
Yeah.
a few weeks ago.
Yeah, I'm good.
Move to adjourn.
I'll second that.
Did we have anybody second that?
I'll
Okay.
second.
Second.